So once again, here we are gathered at Calvary Chapel, Chino Hills, and beyond, other countries that are watching. And I am so excited that I get to unveil our newest program, and it's the Kitchen Table Activist Podcast. And so I get to do it here at Calvary Chapel, Chino Hills, and they're going to go ahead and put my slide presentation up. This just seems so weird to have pictures of myself. Anyway, I do think it might get me some liposuction or some... what is it that you inject? Because I'm noticing, and so I'm going to go home and tell my husband, don't you think I need to have, yes, Botox. I need to have, so if anyone's out there that does that, let me know. So next slide. So I'm here, and I want to talk about how to keep our republic. And I listen to Pastor Jack often after my own church service, and I heard him this last Sunday, or maybe it was the Sunday before, talk about when Ben Franklin was leaving the Constitutional Convention and how he was asked, what form of government do you guys have? Did you guys create? And he said, a republic if you can keep it. So that assumes there's work to do to keep it. And I think when COVID hit, we saw that as such an obstacle, and the left saw it as an opportunity. But the joke was on them because it woke us up. It woke up this country. And Rebecca was talking about the California Healthy Youth Act, and what's interesting, there were just sheets and sheets of organizations that supported it, but there were only 3 organizations that opposed it at the time back in 2015, and Capital Resource Institute was one of them. So we were sounding the alarm and have been for 35 years. So one of the things, and you can go to the next slide, it's time for all of us to wake up, show up, and speak up, just like the founders. We are living kind of in a parallel time. I don't know if you sense that, but I sense that. That, whoa, how did this happen so quickly, so bad? This was going on in our schools, not my school. How many people thought not my school? I still get emails from parents or school board members that will tell me, we're not teaching the radical comprehensive sex ed. It's not in our school. Oh, really? Because Capital Resource Institute did 900 FOIAs, which are Freedom of Information Acts, and we have all the curriculum from all the schools and what they're teaching. And how many times the emails say, don't tell the parents, don't share this link. I got a new FOIA yesterday from Elk Grove Unified. They're still coming in 3 years later. So the founders knew, and it took a while, but they finally woke up, and they realized that nothing was going to change without them waking up, speaking up, and showing up. And with COVID hitting, that is what has happened. We have people that are now awake, and I call them keyboard warriors, and they're the moms, and they're the mom groups, and dads too, but the mom and dad groups that have awakened, and they're online, and they're doing what they need to do to educate themselves, to change what's going on in the schools. So do you remember, and if you attend Calvary Chapel, you hear a lot about the founders. And when the founders made those decisions early on, they were going to be considered traitors. It's not like when they made the decision to do the Declaration of Independence and then the Constitutional Convention that it was like the popular thing to do. It wasn't. It was, we look back now and have the blessing of being able to look back. They didn't know that stepping out. They were going to be traitors. They had friends and family criticizing them. We think, we're having, Rebecca, Star was Star awesome. I love Star. And she was just so dead on. I hear her a lot. And early on, you're going to hear my story. And early on, she used to be in the Bay Area on radio, and I would listen to Star. So it's really cool that I get to share a stage with her. And she was funny too, so I don't like following her either. But the signers, they weren't like the popular crowd. They weren't the ones that everybody, was looking up to. They really went out on a limb. And that's what I feel like our moms and dads that are waking up, that's the time in history we are having right now with them. So next slide. So wake up. The founders knew, and in preparing for this talk, just doing the reading again about how much they understood the Bible and sin nature, and they understood the two competing worldviews. And are we not going through that right now? Where we are sinners, saved by Christ, and in need of a Savior, or, we just need to get to utopia, perfection. We get to be our own God. We just need to change the rules and the law. It's that competing worldviews. And one of the things that I'm finding, and I had to experience this when I first got involved, opinion isn't knowledge. I know that, it's just deep, isn't it? I'm very profound. We're gonna add to my little intro how profound my points are. Yeah. Knowledge is what's power, not opinion. Because opinion isn't knowledge or power. And so write that down too, and then put Karen England said it. So we need to remember that. And one of the things I want to do is talk about our podcast and the Kitchen Table Activists as people are waking up. So on the next slide, we have Show Up, which you guys have shown up. And a lot of people are showing up. They're showing up at school board meetings. They're showing up at city council. They're showing up to vote. I think for a lot of us, we've gotten kind of, I don't want to say, well, yeah, I'll say it, lazy. We think our citizenship is voting. Maybe jury duty. Begrudgingly. And when my son was overseas, I remember going to jury duty, and his little daughter was missing him, and missed his first he missed her first Christmas. And I remember being at jury duty, and people were complaining. And I just, sometimes I'm not the most tactful or winsome or Christ-like. And so, I know that's a shock to anyone that's heard me speak. So I remember saying to the people that we were standing at the crosswalk leaving because we had to come back the next day before we were rejected. I always want to be on jury duty, but anyway. So I remember they were complaining, and I just said, do you know how great it is we live in a country where we are going to be the ones that decide this? My son is fighting in a country where they just shoot people because Saddam Hussein says so. Like, do you get that? And I think they were like, well, who's this crazy lady? But I was a little bit emotional and a bit upset. So it's important that we show up. And again, far beyond Election Tuesday and jury duty. It's a republic if we can keep it. And the we isn't someone else. The we isn't your neighbor. The we is sitting in this room and in the audience watching. And I really, really mean that. We're at a critical time in history. Great, I have 4 kids. They were in competitive soccer. I get all of that. Our lives are busy. But it is time when you leave here that you set time aside to be engaged in your culture and in what's going on at a level that you never have been before. And that's saying a lot for a church and for people that will come out on Saturday and for Calvary Chapel Chino Hills viewers. But if not us, who? And now that you know, you can't unknow. So I'm expecting a lot out of you all. So next slide. So speak up. That's what the Kitchen Table Activist is about, the podcast. So Gina has been after me for quite some time about doing a podcast, and that requires discipline, and I'm not really good at discipline. So finally, I got with it, and I said, okay, I'm going to do a podcast, and I want to do it as the Kitchen Table Activist, because that's how I got my start. So I got my start years ago. I found out I was the religious right. About 25 years ago, we had several things were going on all at the same time. We had my husband. How many of you have ever heard of the radio show guy, Tom Likas? He's an atheist. Okay. Ooh, such an informed crowd. Okay, so my husband, 25 years ago, sales rep, we had one car. He would pray for this Tom Likas. He would listen to him and pray for him. And so one day he comes home and he's like, hey, turn the radio on. You need to call. Tom Likas is saying that moms, it takes 2 incomes now and that moms shouldn't stay at home anymore. You need to call. And I'm like, I can't call a radio talk. I'm just like, you've got to be kidding me, John. And he's like, no, do it. And I'm like, the submissive wife. So I go, oh, okay. So, yes, that's me. So I go ahead and I'm like, okay, I'll call. What am I supposed to say? And he's like, just say that, yes, you can. It's a choice that you go to work. So I call up and they wouldn't take me. They said, no, we've got enough callers. Well, wouldn't you know it, progressives and liberals, they're fine having men that are conservative call about conservative women because that fits their narrative. They're not really fond of the sassy kind that I am. I call myself salty because that's spiritual, so I'm salty. I don't think snarky's in the Bible, but salty is, so let's go with that. That's right, so I'm salty. So my husband comes out, because at that time he had to go in the other room, listen to the radio, comes running back out. He's talking to me, and he's like, you need to call them back. And I'm like, what? Like, I'm cooking dinner, like, I don't even know. I call back. He goes, tell them they won't take you because you're a female. And now I love to kind of throw out the female card when I need to with progressives. But I was like, okay, so I call up, they let me on. Here's the funny thing. I was debating the head of the National Organization for Women on the radio. I'd voted once in my life. I'd never been active in anything. And all of a sudden I'm on a radio show and I just was like, hey, it's a choice. And it's, our family vacations are camping. We have one car. It is a choice we have made for our family. So that was the first thing that happened. And then the second thing that happened that was really interesting, and I'm sharing this because I am you guys that want to get involved but don't know how or what. So we had a foster son, and I was reading in the paper about the local school board and how we needed to get engaged because this religious right person was there and she was ruining the school board and she was destroying public education. Now, I was a new believer. I became a believer about a year before I met my husband. We then got married. We'd been married. This would have been like 3 years after I was a believer. And he's the one that got me to vote, in addition to calling the radio show. And now, when we're starting in a conflict and I look at him and say, are you sure you want to keep arguing? Because I argue for a living now. Yeah, he often laughs and says, Karen, I am going to get a website for all the men you go up against that says, I feel your pain. So anyway, he actually is. I wouldn't be able to be here without his love and support and his understanding of my snarky, salty calling. So I was like, okay. My husband had worked for Campus Crusade for Christ, and I always considered, I'd always considered him more conservative than me, which is so not the case now. But so I was like, I've never seen one of these religious right people. I'm like, I know John and his friends, and so-and-so, I know they're kind of crazy, but like I've never seen one of these. So I go down to the school board meeting, walk in, union's there. Rebecca talked about the union. They're handing out these stickers, and I'm like, I don't know if I want a sticker. I go, I don't even know what side I'm on. And I'll never forget, and I know her well now. Her name is Kelly Nile. She was the president of the school board in Rockland, California, and they were talking about sex ed, talk about full circle. And she goes, well, I just think that we need to have some abstinence in it. That's like the extent of it. I mean, now it's how many times can we talk about anal sex? I mean, that's how quickly things have changed. And I remember sitting there going, oh my gosh, I am it. I am the religious right trying to destroy the public schools. I better get busy. So, you can go up to the next slide because here's the other one. How many of you are familiar with what happened on Lobby Day, went to Lobby Day, heard about Lobby Day? Okay. So, unfortunately, you don't get to hear my entire talk at Lobby Day. You're getting some of it today. So after all of this happened, I went with Concerned Women for America, had a Lobby Day at the state capitol in California, and so I went. And I'll never forget, how many of you know former Assemblyman Steve Baldwin out of San Diego? Okay, it was a while ago. I was in my teens. So he was speaking, and they're explaining this bill, and all of us really well-intentioned moms are there, and we're listening. We're like, yes, this is a really bad bill. Yes, we're going to go talk to our legislators. And so at the end of Lobby Day, we had to line up, and they gave us a packet of information with a legislator's name and their room number. Yes, and my girlfriend and I took it. And we walked out, and we looked at each other like, who's going to talk? And I'm like, I'm not going to talk. She's like, I'm not going to talk. It went in the trash, and we went home. But that's the experience lots of people have had. How many people thought going to Lobby Day was going to be more difficult than it was, and you went, and it was like, whoa, this is easy, I'm smarter. It's amazing. The next year, I started doing citizen lobby days. And as a result, all these years later, I'm turning it into the kitchen table activist. So let's go to the next slide. So here's what's going to happen on the kitchen table activist. I brought my handy dandy planner. We've got them out on the table. I like to buy these planner things and the stickers and all of that, and then it sits in a closet. So I'm really excited about the kitchen table activist because I'm going to put all this stuff to use. But it is a thing with younger moms. So I'm going to start with, you can go to the next slide. So we started with podcasts and workshops. So we have a handful of podcasts already up there. So you go, all of this is free. I want you to be able to listen to it, print the printables, and use it for free. And while this is California, this podcast is for wherever you live. And I'll talk a little bit about that, but you can scan it. And you've also got a card in your binder, and you'll be getting emails from me if you're on our email list. But a podcast. So our podcast is anywhere from about 5 to 30 minutes long. So very short. You can listen to it while you're cooking dinner, pop it in when you're going into the car line at school. I wanted something knowing that moms' lives and dads, we're not like progressives. We're actually busy at church and serving our community. I mean, our life isn't school board meetings, although it is becoming that, and I want to help you be effective at that. So, podcasts. I'm going to give you a couple of examples of the ones that are up there now, but there'll be a new one released every Tuesday. We have How a Bill Becomes a Law. I did that after this last Lobby Day. Was anyone at the training, Lobby Day training? Okay, oh, this is cool. Okay, so the Lobby Day training, and I explained how a bill becomes a law, and that AB 2223 means Assembly Bill 2223. Everybody's heads nodded. Really? That's what that means. Something that simple was a reminder to me that there was a time where that was new to me, and that knowledge gave me power. And it was like, oh, okay, I understand better. Because let me share a little secret. I recently got my 8th grade report card, and in government, I had a D-. So you too, as long as you can say plutocracy, you can become thank you. I knew someone would know my joke. My Chino was like, I don't think people are going to know that. I go, they are. I'm just telling you. I'm going to weave it in somehow. But I'm really into that word. I did have to go Google it to make sure I understood the meaning, though. So I want you to know, I got a D- in government. So we have the podcast. So How a Bill Becomes a Law. A more recent one I did was obscenity laws and porn in school, and there's going to be a lot on that. Our kids are really faced with a lot of porn in schools. We have, How a Bill Becomes a Law, porn in schools, how to read a bill. I'm going to do one on 2223, so you can listen to it and get kind of briefed up on that. We're going to talk about sex education, what's in those 900 FOIAs. But my goal, and you can go to the next one, is that By the end of a year, everyone will have an activist planner full of information for their own community. And for those of you that aren't from California, it will also include your state. So when I talk about how a bill becomes a law in the legislative session, I give you examples of where you can go, whether you're in California or somewhere else, to get that information. That information will be linked on our website. You then can Google and put that information up. Let's go to the next slide after that one, the activist planner. So this is one of my podcasts, Back to School Checklist. So I did a podcast on the Back to School Checklist. Here are the questions that you should be asking your kids. Here's how you find that stuff out. This is the starting point. Parents want to do something, they just don't know how. So that's a great one. So you can listen, you can then print that, stick it in your notebook. We have resources, and then we have educational information. Next slide. 10 Commandments of Effective Advocacy, another podcast where I just talk about, the important things when you go talk to a legislator and how to communicate effectively, all of that. Next slide. We have in there an action plan. So again, keep in mind, if you miss for 3 weeks because you're busy and you're doing something, it's okay. There's going to be plenty going on in 3 more weeks. I mean, you can get going and go back to it. Next slide. Representative profiles. I love this one. Do you see how, I almost fell, did you see that? Representative profiles. So we put your local, we have your school board members. You should be looking up who your school board members are. You should put on there who is their chief of staff. When you see an article or you read something about that school board member, print it out and stick it in your binder so that when you go back and you read the Know Thy Legislator, you're going to start a dossier on your school board members, because that's how you're going to be able to communicate effectively to them, is by knowing what pushes their buttons, how they voted. That will be going in your notebook, all of that. And you're going to keep it here. Can you imagine at the end of the year, between podcasts and especially being engaged at Calvary Chapel, Chino Hills, how full your notebook would be? And not only that, but this right here, these are the people that you need to be praying for at dinner with your family. These are by name, their staff, their contact info. So again, I know our lives are busy. That's why I want to do this podcast and this notebook. I lived it, and I want to make it as easy as possible for the rest of you, and especially the new groups that are popping up and forming left and right all over the country. So next slide. Call log. Every time you make a phone call, and you don't have to do it every time, but I think if you start keeping this, you'll be empowered to do more. When your girlfriend comes to visit you from Florida and sees your notebook, it's going to inspire her. I didn't know you were doing this. This is so cool. Again, this is all free. I want to do it for free because especially our younger moms, it's kind of, I don't know if anyone's heard, I know Biden was going to have it under control, but there is inflation and things are expensive. So we want to offer that. But here's a perfect example. Calvary Chapel's Action Alert. Hole punch it and stick it in your notebook. Look back. This is also a time to look back and see the things like how this church helped defeat the, was it 1400? The health care for all. It's a reminder, just like our founders. It's a reminder of everything that you worked on that you won. And it's a big prayer log and prayer journal. Great for your kids to see. Next slide. Other tools, I don't want you to miss my voice ever, so there's an episode tracker. If you saw my big picture with me, this is just so funny because I know you don't believe it, but I'm an introvert. So seeing my face on this thing out there, I was like, John, we're going to put it up in the house, and I'm just going to have it follow you around. When we're in a fight, I'll just be like, which we never fight. I'm a pastor's wife. We never fight. So there's more tools. Next slide. One thing that we just launched in the last 2 days, and we already have one in Tennessee, and I'm hoping from online or from here, we have some, and it's kitchen table activist clubs and gatherings. And we want leaders. Couple of things. This is not to take the place of the active parents group you're involved in, like Calvary Chapel has one. Keep that. We still want you to get engaged with us. You don't have to be a kitchen table activist club or gathering. We want to help everyone. I'm working with the Moms for Liberty in Tennessee quite a bit. I want to help them. It has nothing to do with, they don't have to become a club. I believe God has called me for right now, all of those years of being engaged in school board battles and staying at school board meetings till 1:30 in the morning. It has all been for right now, for this, and to equip those young moms. I so believe that in the core of who I am. So, and we will have, and gatherings. So one thing, we talk about the founders and their sacrifice. We need to start making those sacrifices. It's easier when you can do it with someone else. Our founders were willing to risk their lives and their fortune. We don't want to opt our kids out of the sex ed because they might be sitting alone. I mean, that's on us. What are we teaching them? Get another mom to do it with you. The gatherings, we will have ideas on what you can do to make it fun. Because again, this is going to take time out, and moms need some rest time. It's not easy. I live in a military town. I live in Clarksville, Tennessee now. And you talk about some overworked moms, which makes me even more furious at the schools for taking advantage of them. Okay, next slide, because I've got to go fast. Lobby Day. We want to equip you. Thank you. I love Citizen Lobby Days. We want to equip you on how to do that, even if it's a mini lobby day, even if it's a mini organize and go to a school board meeting. And here's the rules of how a school board meeting works in your county or your school. So we want to equip our leaders to do that, and we will be doing courses and Zoom calls and all of that. Next slide. So how can you guys help? Obviously, you can pray for us. You can learn everything you can about the process, sex ed, whatever the Lord has put on your heart. Might be reaching out to all of those teachers and adopting a teacher. You can share, and by share this, I mean share information and share in the burden. Ways to engage. We had a situation in Rockland when they did the I Am Jazz, and the little boy came out as a girl in the kindergarten class. Before that school board meeting, my old church, because at the time I moved to another state, my old church said, hey, it's Wednesday night. Why don't we open up for our regular babysitting? We already check our background check, our teachers. We'll get some pizza early. That way moms and dads can go to the school board meeting together. Can you do that? Can you babysit for your neighbor who's an activist mom? Can you make a meal just like you do when someone has passed away or gone on to be with the Lord? Can you do that? Donate. We are a nonprofit. I don't want to say no to anyone needing our help. That's why we're not charging. But it doesn't mean it's free. All of this, staff, everything still takes time. And I want to continue to do this for free. I want to maybe get skinnier and then do video too, so. Not asking for you to pay for my weight loss. I promise. Our stuff is all online. Okay, next slide. The other thing, and this I'm so excited about, you saw it at Lobby Day, and you'll never see me without wearing my earrings. I have been passionate with my entire staff that I, Karen England, really, really believe this. As I would speak up, people would say that I was anointed, early on, and I was like, yeah. I mean, it was like, yes, you hear that. I own it now that the Lord has called me, Karen England, for such a time as this. It's giving me chills. My staff knows it. I talk about it all the time. So there's a friend, she's a mini me, because everyone has always said I needed to be cloned, and I finally found someone. So she made these earrings, and I went to her and I said, could you make some Esther earrings for me? I want to wear Esther all the time. I want it to become the new baby feed if you're pro-life. I want people at the grocery store asking me, what does this mean? And I can share what it means, why I'm doing it. That I believe we're in a different time in history, just like our founding. And that it's gotta be we, the people, we've gotta all get engaged and get involved. It's okay to miss a soccer game to save your country and to restore parental rights. So next slide and last slide. Are you called for a time such as this? And what are you going to do with what you learned today? Thank you.